Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot has been said here about the fear of threats, but what we're concerned about in the scope of this committee is the fear of threats to the American citizens. The reason we use the term weaponization is because it is appropriate. We have so many examples of that across so many federal agencies that were designed to serve and protect the American people and have been used in recent years against them, that it will take us probably 2 years to lay that out. But I just want to focus on one that's been mentioned this morning because the timeline is important, the school boards issue. On June 22nd, 2021, Loudoun County parent Scott Smith spoke out at his local school board meeting and he was arrested. On September 29th, citing Mr. Smith's arrest as an example, the National School Boards Association sent a letter to the Biden administration requesting federal law enforcement involvement in local school board disputes. Now, here's what's really important. We learned later that the White House helped the NSBA draft that letter to itself. On October 4th, Attorney General Merrick Garland issued the now infamous memo directing federal law enforcement to mobilize against the parents of school children who protest at their local school board meetings. He turned the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's offices, the full weight of the Federal Department of Justice against the very citizens they were sworn to defend and protect. On October 12th, we learned that the Loudoun County parent Scott Smith's daughter was actually sexually assaulted at her school and that the school board covered it up. And that was the reason why that dad showed up to protest. 9 days later, October 21st, happened to be the day previously scheduled for Attorney General Merrick Garland himself to appear before our House Judiciary Committee. In that hearing, as my colleagues will remember, he was forced to acknowledge before our committee that the NSBA letter was the basis of his memo targeting concerned parents. But he refused to acknowledge the obvious chilling effect that memo, involving the full weight of the federal law enforcement apparatus, would have on parents' protected First Amendment speech. He also, by the way, refused to commit to a mandatory, under federal law, mandatory ethics review of his own family's financial ties to advancing critical race theory in schools and its relation to his school board memo and the obvious appearance of the conflict of interest therein. I encourage all interested citizens to watch the video of that hearing. It was pretty contentious. The very next day, on October 22nd, after much public outcry, the NSBA retracted and publicly apologized for its letter labeling concerned parents like Scott Smith as, quote, domestic terrorists. In the following weeks, over 20 different state school board associations severed their ties with the National School Boards Association. Our Democrat colleagues have tried to downplay the importance of this select committee and even criticized its name as hyperbolic. But as this example and so many others clearly show, key agencies have indeed been weaponized. We're informed even still today that that memo has not been retracted by the Attorney General. Here's the question, Mr. Baker. You were an FBI agent for 33 years and were involved in a lot of the important and noble work there, but you've also said clearly and been vocal about some of the egregious overreaches you've seen from the FBI and the DOJ. In recent years, you've described what has devolved into a culture of, quote, deceit and deception involving, quote, alarming FBI behavior, and you've written that those abuses threaten the liberties of those on the left as well as the right. Professor Turley just cited statistics here today that there are large numbers of Americans who now distrust the FBI. Our task here is to determine exactly how that's happened and how to correct that framework. Mr. Baker, here's the question. In your testimony, you noted that FBI Director Mueller, a couple of decades ago, worked to centralize the FBI, meaning that he centralized all information and decision-making, making that at the FBI headquarters, as opposed to his predecessor's decentralized model, which empowered the field offices instead. Do you believe the elimination of all those layers of supervision, review, and independent judgment is a key reason for all this corruption we see today, and that it's something that must be reformed and reversed?
Yes, in fact, I do.
Hit that button for me, if you will.
Yes, in fact, I do, Congressman. I don't use the term corruption. The term I think is more appropriate that your colleague, Congresswoman Stefanik, used, the rotten culture, the culture rot. And specifically as regards to centralization, there's no question about it. Traditionally in the FBI, field agent had an investigation. He had a field supervisor above him. Above him was the agent in charge of that office. Only then did the information and the decision-making go to FBI headquarters. What happened under Mueller's centralized thing, all of that was eliminated. They ran these key investigations, the Hillary Clinton email investigation and then the Trump collusion investigation, out of headquarters, eliminated all these layers of independent judgment, supervision, gone. So you had someone like, somebody mentioned his name already here, Strzok, not only writes the communication opening the case, he goes the next day to London and conducts the first interview in the case. You have McCabe, a deputy director, number 2 in the whole bureau, directs the investigation and sends 2 agents to the White House to interview General Flynn. No levels of review. It was bound to end badly.
Thank you. I'm out of time. Yield back.
I think